Hey, and welcome to episode 105. Today, I'm going to build this little building, but that is definitely not the most amazing thing that's going to happen in this episode. The major thing is that I'm going to be supporting the roller coaster, which was actually kind of a funny thing, since the idea of how the roller coaster as a whole should be actually changed while I was supporting it, but that's a story for at some other point in this video. First, I should probably talk about this house. This was the second house, and I also didn't really look at anything in real life of how I should do things in particular when it comes to the English theme, and I must also say that I have my doubts about how well this building in the end actually reflects the English theme. I am not going to keep this texture, by the way, which it has at the moment, which is that I think it's from the Dutch sets. I figured I could try it since it does have a stone texture and also had some of the pieces that I needed, but in the end that really just didn't work, so I did make the walls brown in the end, but even then I still feel like I haven't really captured the English architectural style as a whole in this building, and I would like to look at it a tiny bit more later on when I get to the other buildings, but expect from me that in the next couple of episodes, I'll try to not do too many things that are new to me when it comes to the buildings, and actually try some other things. It's going to be a lot of pathworks, a lot of foliage, and actually doing something really special with a flat ride, but I'll also talk about that at some point later on when that is actually going to happen. So yeah, this building itself is not really too special, though I must add, the way that I built it was still looking at Google Images, trying to find houses in London and see what I can get inspiration from, and I did get inspiration from English houses and kind of decided to make it after that, but the problem is that you can really recognize the fact that I took windows and all sorts of props of the buildings from different sets, and there is no real distinct English theme to them. So even though they were modeled after English houses, so they have a similar build-up overall, a similar color scheme and use of materials, the details themselves are just some things that I'm not too sure about at the moment. For example, I found some really unique Victorian and Gothic windows on many houses that you just don't have in Rollercoaster Tycoon 3. I've never found custom scenery sets that have windows like the windows that I have found on English houses that I found on Google Images, so it's really hard to even come up with anything to do about that. So it is probably very inevitable that I'm gonna have to make some simple custom scenery just to make it work a tiny bit, just like for the Dutch area. But before I get to do that, I just like to procrastinate and do other things that I just feel like doing more. Which also means that, I mean, this might sound like the overall layout and planning of this area is not as important as getting the architecture right, and I would definitely not say that that is the case. It is very important to me to get the overall shape and design of this area to be very good. So they're both very important things. I just feel like the architecture is something that I am completely failing on, and, well, not completely failing on, but something that I don't feel like I can do in the future without doing some more research slash making some custom scenery, because I just find so many things that I can't do in Rollercoaster Tycoon 3 at the moment. And the thing is, there is a certain level of realism that I do want to have. I can probably make buildings that sort of resemble the English theme with what I currently have, but it just isn't realistic enough for what I'm going for. So that is why I, at that point, decided, okay, screw this entire building thing, let's just do some supports for the roller coaster. And this is where the entire idea of this roller coaster changed, because I have probably stressed this quite a bit too much, but the idea that I went for with this roller coaster was I wanted to do something really hipster-ish. I've never ever seen an Intamin stand-up in real life be really well themed. I mean, there are only 2 in the world, maybe even 1, I don't know. But they're a rare occurrence and they're not really themed or anything, and I don't think I've ever seen somebody in Rollercoaster Tycoon 3 make an Intamin stand-up and actually have a lot of theming around it and kind of put a lot of effort into it in that way. So I wanted to do that, but then I got to the support structure for the lift hill, and then I just really felt like making some B&M supports. And that is how this is now a B&M stand-up. It really just doesn't even mean anything. It's exactly the same track. It is pretty much the same cars, so it really doesn't even matter that much. But Intamin stand-up, was just the ultimate hipster idea, but in the end it just didn't work out because I didn't feel like doing it. And so this is now a B&M stand-up. And that being said though, this is still quite a unique B&M stand-up when you compare them to the ones in real life. Since, well, the first thing that is really unique about it is the Cobra roll. That is something that doesn't even exist in real life on stand-ups, but there's also the first drop, which has a very large, extensive sort of pre-drop. And hell, the pre-drop is almost larger than the drop itself, but it isn't, but the pre-drop is very large in this ride, and it's both kind of there to function as a pre-drop as well as being a signature element on the ride. I said that I liked the skyline of the roller coaster at some point, at which people were laughing at the time because it's not really a skyline, but the general idea is that you walk around here in the paths and you have that view of the roller coaster in the distance, and just with the right supports, a lift hill can look so much more menacing than just a boring box track supports or a lift hill with boring straight supports, and that's why I wanted to go for these supports. This also leaves me some room underneath the track that I can fit in the queue line. So that's also really handy. The footprint is a lot smaller on these supports. For anybody, by the way, I didn't not even mention this, but I didn't even make the difference clear, but on a Intamin stand-up you would normally just have normal straight supports underneath the lift hill, but what a very B&M sort of thing to do is to have these supports under the lift hill and have, for example, 3 different supports all connect to one footer in the way that you can see it over here. 2 supports on the top of the lift hill are connecting to one footer, and the 3 supports in the middle are all connecting to one footer as well. And that is just a very B&M-ish thing to do, and I just like the look of that sort of footer makeup a lot more than just straight footers, and that's why I kind of wanted to do it like that. And that's why I should refer to this thing as a B&M stand-up now, because it is very, very unlikely that Intamin would ever make a stand-up coaster that would have this sort of support structure. And that's why I kind of wanted to stress that a tiny bit. And after that, the normal sort of work just kind of continued after the supports. The rest of the supports aren't really too special. It's a pretty low-lying coast, actually. There's a lot of it just being on the terrain and doing helixes and many curves. People did throw multiple times at me still that this thing is going to be quite uncomfortable, to which I can still say it's a stand-up coaster. It is going to be uncomfortable anyway. You're going to fasten your seatbelts anyway and be ready for a heavy ride, so I don't really mind that too much. Here's a little fun thing, by the way. Actually, I had some more ideas with it, but it didn't really work out. You know those kind of arches, right, in gardens where you have like rose bushes that grow all over those arches, and you get an amazing walkway with roses all around you. I kind of wanted to steal from that idea and make a little flower thing there. Only problem was there are no flowers that kind of go around that thing, so eventually it turned out to be just vines. And that's that. Basically, I am going out of my way to get as many unique sort of gardening traits into these planters as I can, because a very common pitfall is that when you have many planters all around one area and you're all going to do the foliage of them at once, that all the planters are basically going to have exactly the same foliage, and I really did not want that whatsoever. So I wanted to get a different sort of style in for every little area and see how that would go. Now I started on a new thing, which I said in the beginning of this episode that I would talk about later, and that is actually this little carousel, which is sort of a building. Not really, it is in the overall Victorian style, and it's really just a roof for the teacups. And of course I did get teacups into the English area. If I didn't get teacups into this area, I would be that would be the most stupid things. If there is one flat ride that I should have in the English area, it should probably be teacups. Otherwise, I'll probably get some crumpets thrown to my head by some Brits. So I needed to get the teacups in there, and figured I could get a roof from existing complete custom scenery sets in there, but I wanted to mess around with a simple Victorian style roof. The initial idea was to make it a lot smaller than this is, but then I placed the teacups and realized that the teacups ride was quite a bit larger than I expected, and decided to just get that middle dome, then place cornices very far away from that so I would have enough clearance for the ride itself, and then just see how it would work out. So it was quite a bit of an experiment, this thing. I was hoping that it would work out, and I think in the end I'm quite happy about this thing actually. It's not too special, it's really simple in shape and form, and it's definitely mostly in the details that it was harder to get this done right. But this is something I always kind of enjoy because you can get... There are many sets that you have that exist that can give you pieces for any sort of ironworks or Victorian style buildings, so you never really run into too many problems of limitations when it comes to custom scenery that you can use. And it's really one of these things where you don't really have to worry about the overall shape of the building, you just skim through sets and add details upon details upon details and make it look like one big sugar-coated pie. And that's pretty much what this building is in the end, a sugar-coated pie. But I do like it. The only thing which I am not so sure about is the placement right here. It feels like this thing wants to be in the middle of paths and wants to have paths all around it with all sorts of gardening and path ornaments. The only problem is if I move this thing outward into the paths and actually built paths all around this thing, I would be obstructing the facades that I want to have in the future in this area. And I would also make this area way too large. That would mean that everything had to move up a couple of tiles, and I feel like I just can't use that, especially considering that then the English area would be way larger than it is already. So it is a bit kind of tucked into the corner of the roller coaster, and the exit is gonna be awkwardly tucked underneath the little bunny hop that the roller coaster has. But other than the fact that it may be looking a bit cramped, I don't really have too many problems with it, and overall I do like the building. In any case, that's it for this episode. I see that I'm running out of time again. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys later. See you, Space Cowboys.